6 United States senators and Congress members walked into federal court this week facing a charge that carries the death penalty. Donald Trump himself said they should be executed. His own Justice Department tried to make that happen. And then something occurred that has not happened in modern American legal history. Every single member of the grand jury, not one, not five, not a majority, every single one, unanimously, looked at Trump's case and threw it in the trash. I have the documents. I have Trump's own words. And I have a former federal judge explaining on the record why what just happened is unlike anything he has ever seen in decades on the bench. Let me take you back to November 2025 so you understand exactly what this is about. 6 members of Congress, all of them military veterans or former intelligence officers who swore an oath to defend the Constitution, recorded a 90-second video. In that video, they reminded active military personnel and members of the intelligence community of something that has been established in American military law for decades, that soldiers are required to follow lawful orders, but they are also required to disobey orders that are manifestly unlawful. That is not an opinion. That is the law. That is what the United States told the world at Nuremberg. That is what every military officer is taught at every academy in this country. These 6 members of Congress quoted the law. That is it. That is the video. Trump saw the video and posted on Truth Social, and I am quoting his exact words here, "Seditious behavior punishable by death." He then shared another user's post that read, and again I am quoting exactly, "Hang them, George Washington would." The President of the United States, on his official social media account, called for the hanging of 6 sitting members of Congress for quoting the law. Screenshot that. Save it. Because that is the context for everything that happened next. Drop a comment right now. Do you think a president should be able to call for the execution of political opponents? Because I want to know what you think. Days later, the FBI contacted the House and Senate sergeants-at-arms requesting interviews with all 6 lawmakers. A formal criminal investigation was opened. The U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C., a woman named Jeanine Pirro, who was appointed by Trump and is a longtime Trump loyalist and former Fox News host, was assigned the case. Legal experts immediately warned that prosecuting sitting members of Congress for speech made in connection with their legislative duties would likely be unconstitutional under 2 separate provisions of the First Amendment and the Speech or Debate Clause. Nobody in Trump's DOJ cared. They pushed forward anyway. Now here is the number you need to understand how extraordinary what happened next truly was. In the entire federal judicial system, across thousands of cases every single year, federal prosecutors successfully obtain grand jury indictments 99.997% of the time. This is not an exaggeration. That is the documented statistical reality of how grand juries work. The system is designed to give prosecutors enormous power. There are no defense attorneys in the room. The target of the investigation cannot speak unless they choose to testify and risk self-incrimination. The prosecutor decides exactly what evidence to present. Grand juries almost never say no, and when they do say no, it typically means a handful of cases out of tens of thousands in an entire year across the whole country. Hit subscribe right now and tap the bell, because this investigation is not over and you need every update the moment it drops. The grand jury in Washington said no, unanimously. Not a single one of the jurors, and there are between 16 and 23 members on a federal grand jury. Not one of them found probable cause to believe that 6 military veterans had committed a crime by quoting the law to fellow service members. According to 2 sources familiar with the proceedings, federal prosecutors from Pirro's office could not convince a single juror to meet even the basic threshold of probable cause. They did not need to prove guilt. They did not need to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. They simply needed to convince 12 out of as many as 23 ordinary American citizens that there was reason to believe a crime might have happened. They could not do it. The vote, according to reporting from multiple outlets, was unanimous. A former federal judge who served on the bench for decades told a major news outlet this week that in all his years on the bench, he could not recall a single instance of a grand jury refusing to return an indictment when federal prosecutors sought one. He called what is happening with Trump's Justice Department remarkable and unprecedented. And he said that what the grand jurors did shows that ordinary American citizens, even without legal training, can see clearly when a prosecution is political rather than legal. Pause this video right now. I want you to really take in what that means. A hand-picked group of American citizens with no legal expertise, sitting in a room with only the government's side of the story, no defense allowed, looked at everything Trump's DOJ gave them and said no. That has essentially never happened before. And it just happened to Trump twice in recent weeks, because this is not the first grand jury that has rejected his administration's cases. A grand jury also refused to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James on the charges Trump's DOJ sought against her. The pattern is becoming impossible to ignore. Now let me tell you who these 6 people are that Trump wanted executed, because the mainstream media has not told you their full story. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona is a retired Navy combat pilot and a NASA astronaut who flew 4 missions to the International Space Station. Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan is a former CIA analyst who served multiple tours assessing threats in Iraq. Representative Jason Crow of Colorado is a former Army Ranger who served in combat in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Representative Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania is a former Air Force officer. Representative Maggie Goodlander of New Hampshire is a former Navy reservist. Representative Chris DeLuzio of Pennsylvania is a former Navy officer. These are the 6 people that the President of the United States called traitors deserving of death. These are the 6 people his Justice Department tried to imprison on charges of seditious conspiracy. And not one anonymous American citizen on a grand jury believed for even a second that they had done anything wrong. Senator Mark Kelly said publicly afterward, "It wasn't enough for Pete Hegseth to censure me and threaten to demote me. Now it appears they tried to have me charged with a crime, all because of something I said that they didn't like. That's not the way things work in America." Senator Slotkin said, "Jeanine Pirro did this at the direction of President Trump, who said repeatedly that I should be investigated, arrested, and hanged for sedition. Today it was a grand jury of anonymous American citizens who upheld the rule of law and determined this case should not proceed." Representative Goodlander put it most directly. "President Trump directed the Justice Department to investigate me, arrest me, and hang me simply for doing my job. Today, an American grand jury honored our Constitution by standing up to an outrageous abuse of presidential power." And here's the part of this story that the mainstream media has buried. It was not just Democrats who condemned Trump's Justice Department for this. Republican Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, a member of Trump's own party, posted publicly, "Political lawfare waged by either side undermines America's criminal justice system, which is the gold standard of the world. Thankfully, in this instance, a jury saw the attempted indictments for what they really were. Political lawfare is not normal, not acceptable, and needs to stop." Republican Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, the top Republican on the Senate Judiciary Committee, said law enforcement ought to be spending their time on making our community safe and going after real lawbreakers. Republicans, on the record, calling their own president's legal strategy political lawfare. Drop a comment if you think Jeanine Pirro needs to be investigated for abusing her power as U.S. Attorney, because I want to know where you stand. Now here's what this grand jury decision actually reveals about the bigger picture, the part that should concern every American regardless of which party they support. This is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern. Trump's DOJ tried to charge former FBI Director James Comey. Another grand jury rejected it. Trump's DOJ tried to charge New York Attorney General Letitia James. Another grand jury rejected it. Now Trump's DOJ tried to charge 6 sitting members of Congress with sedition, a crime historically associated with people who try to overthrow the government, being applied to people who quoted the law in a 90-second video. A third grand jury rejected it. Judges across the country, according to reporting from major outlets, have noted that federal prosecutors under this administration have made provably false statements in open court, and the judges have stopped believing them. Grand juries have noticed the same pattern. The former federal judge who spoke this week made one observation that I cannot stop thinking about. He said that grand jurors are not blind to what is taking place in the world around them. These are anonymous American citizens, summoned randomly, with no political stake in the outcome, sitting in a secret room where the rules entirely favor the prosecution, and they keep saying no. What does it tell you when the people with the least power in the room, the ones the system is designed to make into rubber stamps, keep finding the courage to say no? Here is where things stand right now. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has separately initiated proceedings to strip Senator Mark Kelly of his retirement rank as a Navy captain and reduce his pension as punishment for the video. That case is currently being decided by a federal judge. Kelly has sued Hegseth over it. Multiple other lawsuits are pending. The congressional Democrats who made the video have been clear that they will not back down, and Kelly specifically said, "You'll be damn sure that we are not going to back down," when speaking to reporters after the grand jury's decision became public. And the question every American needs to ask is this: if a president can deploy the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, and the full weight of the federal government's criminal apparatus against sitting members of Congress simply for quoting existing law, and then calling publicly for their execution, what can he do? The grand jury answered that question this week, and anonymous American citizens, ordinary people with no legal training and no political agenda, gave an answer that every single person in power should hear. Not this, not on our watch, not in America. Subscribe if you want every update as this story develops, and share this video right now because YouTube only pushes it to more people when you do. I will see you in the next one.